This is what it's all about. Put it on the screen. Novak Djokovic has admitted it. It's the same thing for Rafa Nadal. Why would it be any other way? Here's the quote from Novak Djokovic. I did an MRI. I did everything. I know what it is, but I don't want to talk about it right now. The headline on this article, which I will rate as slightly dubious. We have a lot of misleading headlines and media coverage of all things around the world, but sometimes tennis as well. A headline here from ubitennis.net, written by the Adam Adicott, February 14th. That's today. Happy St. Valentino's Day to you out there. Thank you for joining us. Refusal to reveal MRI diagnosis sparks mystery over Novak Djokovic's Australian Open injury. There's no mystery. Roger Federer went through the same thing. Isn't it funny? We're waiting last night to see if Djokovic is going to play, right? There was a rumor that he was going to make an announcement at 1 a.m. He did not. At least I missed it. I had my ears open, didn't hear it. Saw some footage of him in the training room working on some stretches next to Simona Halep. Saw him eventually on court hitting some balls, looking okay. Djokovic is definitely not okay. He's definitely not 100%. The people out there who are saying he faked an injury, my question to you is why? Why fake an injury with Taylor Fritz and drop 2 sets? Is some kind of trick tactic from Djokovic to be this close to winning the match and then drop a couple sets because you're faking an injury? It makes no sense. It's pretty obvious playing against Raonic. Raonic would have been able to beat Djokovic maybe in that match last night, if not for the fact that he is 0-11. When you have that kind of head-to-head, Djokovic was probably feeling like, you know what, I could beat this guy on one leg, so let's definitely get out there and give it a go against Milos. And Milos knows, and Milos had his own little injury thing too. He had to take an injury timeout, and they taped up his ankle. I don't know what was going on with him. He did not play his best. Djokovic able to come through. Definitely not 100%. Let's get back to the quote, though, because this is what matters to me. We're doing big picture here with Novak Djokovic. I know what it is. I don't want to talk about it now. As I was saying, Roger Federer went through the same thing last year. He didn't want to give a lot of information. Why tell der Gegner? Why tell the enemy what's going on with your body exactly? They don't need to know how injured or not injured you are. Let it be a mystery going into the matchup. That is definitely an advantage for Djokovic. No one should fault him for doing that. Anyone with half a brain would do the same. I don't want to talk about it now. I'm still in the tournament. There's the key there. Top players in a tournament don't reveal their secrets, don't reveal their injuries. I try to use every single hour possible to recover and give myself at least a little bit of a chance to step on court, which I have done. And as I said, here's the key. As I said on the court, if I'm part of any other tournament other than a Grand Slam, I definitely would not be playing. But it is a Grand Slam. It matters a lot to me at this stage of my career. Of course, I want to do everything possible in this very short amount of time to get on the court. Again, put it on the screen. This is what it's all about. Those numbers right there. I'm very happy that Djokovic is being honest about it, and I don't fault him one bit. He should absolutely go for it. It's not just a Grand Slam. It's his Grand Slam. Now, in the draw show, we kind of made fun of it a little bit. People out there saying, this is going to be a big tournament of surprises. But you know what? It's a big tournament of surprises. Surprise number one is Rafa's now saying in Espanol, as you know, Roger Federer is going to give you the best, most candid stuff in Swiss with Swiss media, in Swiss German. And Rafa said it in Spanish, the back is doing a lot better. He's happy because the back is starting to feel better now, and he's pretty confident. That's a surprise. The biggest surprise is the most hurt player now is Djokovic. Djokovic is definitely carrying a real injury. And Sasha Zverev, if he doesn't find a way to beat Djokovic, I mean, that's kind of a colossal failure. You need to clear your mind. Don't think about the injury and just go out there and bring it like he did at the World Tour Finals. This is the fastest we've ever seen the Australian Open. He beat him on a very fast World Tour Finals court that one time. Sasha Zverev should take advantage of that. So this is a very interesting new development now in the tournament. But to me, what's most interesting and what's made it difficult for me to make a show recently, when the political stuff gets involved with this Dan Andrews guy, the premier of Victoria, it's basically like a state like we have here in the United States. We got states like where I live, Georgia, California, Texas, New York, some famous states you've probably heard of if you're not from the U.S. They've got states in Australia, and one of the big ones is Victoria, where they got about 7 million people who are going into a full lockdown that is kind of, if you don't live there and you're not used to that stuff, it's kind of shocking. But let's go to where it started. You might notice I got Lando Calrissian here because if you'll remember in The Empire Strikes Back, he kind of had to make a deal with the devil. And that's where I feel Craig Smiley Tiley, he's probably not smiling so much at this year's Australian Open, because it looks like working with Dan Andrews is pretty high stress. It's not working with, it's working under Supreme Leader Dan Andrews. So let's start off with Craig Tiley Smiley's making the announcement, and one of the first things they ask him is, well, what happens if the tournament, if the match, because they're going to have fans today after announcing this big lockdown where no one's allowed to go further than 3 miles from their house and only allowed to leave for 1 hour a day. Again, if you don't live in Australia, this might sound a little harsh to you, this kind of a shutdown. It does seem a little extreme to me too. So they're asking about, well, what are you going to do if the matches go late tonight and everyone must be, by order of Premier Dan Andrews, must be home by 11:59 p.m. tonight, right before the clock strikes midnight? What are you going to do if the tournament's still going and you still got spectators? And this is what Craig Tiley Smiley said.
It'll be a long match if they run after midnight, but we are still working with health to figure out what's the best way to manage that.
We'll have to get back to you on that one, because they don't know a whole lot, because they're just waiting for what comes from above from Premier Dan. So that sets up, of course, the matches go late. This is what happened. To me, this is disgraceful.
It is bottom of the hour, so...
restrictions. You must be home by 11:59 p.m. tonight. Therefore, all patrons are required to leave the arena now.
Now, aside from that little clip, I'm going to try very hard not to use too many clips and just put a still image up on the screen while you hear the audio from the video, because we know that they like to harass us here on the YouTubes and take my videos down if I use footage of tennis. Even though we're not showing any tennis, we're trying to show a newsworthy news type event, which falls under fair use law here in the U.S., I believe. We're going to be on our best behavior and just put a still image. Listen, this makes me uncomfortable listening to, I really respect BG, Brad Gilbert, and, the ESPN commentary crew. They do good work. But listening to the level of comfort they have with just saying, throw all these people out. I mean, take a listen to the conversation.
They have got a fair few of the fans out now, but there might be one or two stragglers. Doesn't look like that guy's leaving anytime soon.
Definitely not. I'm thinking they're going to have some security move some people.
Well, that gentleman there, he certainly isn't leaving. We'll have to call security to drag him out by the hair. Okay, they didn't exactly say that, but again, it's a little uncomfortable the way I hear these things discussed. But next up, let's go to the media talking to Craig Smiley Tiley before this match earlier in the day that Djokovic had his injury playing Taylor Fritz. And take a listen to this one. This is the media making sure that, because Dan Andrews is... he's saying, who's essential and who's not essential. The tennis players are essential. What about the media? They want to make sure they are essential too. Craig Smiley Tiley responds.
I think you asked Chris which media would be considered essential or not. That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Well, what do you know? We'll have to get back to you on that. It seems like Craig Tiley Smiley doesn't know a lot, kind of like Lando, but he does know one thing. They asked him about the negotiations, conversations going on between him and the office of Supreme Leader Dan Andrews. Take a listen. Craig Smiley Tiley definitely knows where he stands on this issue.
It's a good question. The question was, did we have any role in the discussion with government? We did not, and we don't expect to.
Nothing. Not involved. No communication. No discussion. Just waiting for the word to come down. But we do have a clip of Dan Andrews here talking about how they are working with the Australian Open in the arrangement that Dan Andrews has with Craig Smiley Tiley. Their kind of working relationship. Here's Premier Dan Andrews of Victoria, Australia, commenting on his working relationship with Craig Smiley Tiley and Tennis Australia.
Calrissian, take the princess and the Wookiee to my ship.
You said they'd be left in the city under my supervision.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
All right, now you see why I got the Lando Calrissian out. But let's dive into. All right, so let's listen to some more clips of the commentator. Patrick McEnroe is in here as well, talking about what exactly this 5-day circuit breaker lockdown includes. Keep in mind, there's about 7 million people living in the state of Victoria, which is completely shut down. You can't leave. If you say this is not for you, I want to go fly to the United States, they're a little more lenient with the freedom stuff here. You can't leave. You have to stay. You can't leave the state of Victoria. you can't leave the country. If you live there, there's no escaping it. Take a listen to some more details about how much fun this lockdown sounds like for the 7 million people living in Victoria.
A couple of details for the people living there. 5-kilometer limit for leaving your home area. That's about a little over 3 miles to be reintroduced. Face masks will be required at all times outside of the home. That includes both indoors and outdoors. No visitors will be allowed in the home. Public gatherings will not be allowed.
And that means that fans have to leave the stadium in 30 minutes. Victoria's returning to stage 4 restrictions for 5 days. They call it a circuit breaker, trying to get everybody quarantined that has got COVID at the moment, and making sure that everybody else remains nice and safe. So locals will only be allowed out of the house for an hour a day and must work from home if necessary. But the tournament won't be affected.
There's two things that really, I thought Patrick McEnroe wasn't so bad, but there's a couple things that I can't remember his name, the other guy. A couple things he said that make me kind of uncomfortable with this whole thing. And again, if you're out there saying, Matt, people are dying from COVID-19, we got to take extraordinary measures in these extraordinary times. I understand, there is a case to that is a case to be made. And I definitely don't like the idea of people, older people, vulnerable people with pre-existing conditions catching COVID because of some of the rowdy, like the types you see in the Nick Kyrgios Dominic Thiem match. Some of the people in the crowd there, I don't trust them with my grandmother's health either. But still, I think there's a strong case to be made that this smacks a little bit of authoritarianism. This is a lot of power for one guy, Dan Andrews, to snap his finger and lock down about 7 million people. And a lot of people in Australia apparently think that this is not going to be 5 days, that's just something they said not to spook everyone before they go into the lockdown, and that this is actually going to go a lot longer. Keep in mind, the Washington Post actually reported on this. They said, this is the Washington Post in the U.S. back in, I believe, September. I have the article. First off, the headline said he's dictator Dan. That's the Washington Post. And they said that this is the most strict lockdown in the world, and they were well over 100 days. They've already been through this in 2020. So a lot of people not happy about the idea of maybe getting stuck in this situation for who knows how long. A lot of people think it's going to be a lot longer than 5 days. But that makes me, a couple things made me uncomfortable there, hearing we're going to quarantine, but make sure everyone's safe. This is to make sure everyone's safe. It's for your safety that you have to stay in your house and not leave for more than 1 hour a day and not travel more than 3 miles away from your house when you're out for 1 hour a day. And that includes your grocery shopping, which I don't know about you, but anytime I get home from grocery shopping in less than an hour, I don't know if it's even ever happened. It would be a major victory for me to get home in a little over an hour after grocery shopping. So anyways, let's move on to this one quote: the tournament won't be affected. Listen to it again.
Must work from home if necessary, but the tournament won't be affected.
Other than that, the tournament won't be affected. I disagree. Just ask Matteo Berrettini.
I really miss the crowd, the people. I have to be honest, looking like at the stadium like this and looking at it empty, it's not the best feeling, but we are living really tough times and we have to be tough. So, I think there are worse things in the world, but I'm really sorry for the players and obviously for the crowd, because a great event like this deserves a great crowd. But hopefully in a few days it's going to be back, and I really hope that I'm going to be able to play in front of them again.
Sounds like his tournament has been affected. What about Alex de Minaur? Watching de Minaur lose kind of pitifully to Fabio Fognini, never really able to get his game going, I couldn't help but remember a year ago, right before COVID, before the plague changed the entire world, at the ATP Cup. Remember that match with Rafa Nadal, Alex de Minaur, where the crowd, no doubt it was the crowd, took de Minaur to a level he's never played before. And I don't think he won, right? He didn't win that match, did he? I think Rafa ended up giving him the scissors, as Elliot Loney and Nick Kyrgios like to say. He chopped him. I think Rafa ended up beating him, but still, that crowd was a huge part of de Minaur even making that a competitive match. It was a very exciting match from last year's ATP Cup 2020. And you could argue that de Minaur's kind of had his home slam taken away from him because of this order. Anyways, this is Dan take a look at Chairman Dan, Authoritarian Dan, or as some of the locals in Australia, maybe a couple million locals or more are calling him Dictator Dan. I want to give Dictator Dan a fair chance. I don't want to say that. It is a little inflammatory, but that's what people in Australia are saying. It's worth pointing out. This is Chairman Dan talking about the tournament.
There are no fans. There's no crowds. These people are essentially at their workplace, and the minimum number of staff for it to be run safely, and when I say safety, not just from the virus, but for all other reasons, will be there.
Always nice when you have the supreme leader talking about the workers, the essential workers, who's essential, who's not essential. That's always nice to hear from the pointy heads like Dan Andrews. But one thing, and I've read a lot now because I was very curious about all this. I was very cautious to talk about this stuff on the show. I know how it feels when your sports is an escape from things, and when you hear people dive into political stuff when you're there for sports, it's pretty upsetting, disheartening, and I don't want to risk doing that, alienating people who watch Coffee Break Tennis, making anyone feel bad out there. And I definitely think there is a case to be made for some strict policies trying to protect people from COVID-19. But like I said before, I think there's a pretty strong case that this might be a little too extreme with Dan Andrews. But listen to, their economy is down about 30% in total, and I guess it's still lasting. So they need money. They need tax revenue, and that's a big part of why the Australian Open is happening, right? We heard Benoit Paire earlier say this whole thing is about money. They don't care about players, and it's pretty obvious, and Dan's taken some heat. And listen to this next part when he talks about there's no sense of confusion. No sense of confusion.
But I don't have advice to cancel the event on the basis that it's unsafe. I just don't have that. And I again remind everybody, just in case there's any sense of confusion, this case has got nothing to do with that event.
So Dan's wanting everyone to know that these 13 cases that require locking down 7 million people, confining them to their homes, aside from the 1 hour a day, be thankful for that. Dan is taking some heat, and he wants everyone to know that these cases have nothing to do with the Australian Open. It's not his fault for letting Lando Calrissian, Craig Smiley-Tiley run the Australian Open. But then we have this story right here. Now, this is really a non-story now. It turned into nothing, but it makes you worry. If you want to see the end, I can't find it. I can't find the story. If you want to see the end of the tournament, if you want to see who's the winner of this tournament, you're not going to want to see many more stories like this. I just found it. Here it is. Australian Open hangs in the balance after Greek tennis player Mikhail Pervilarakis, that's the guy who, there's not a lot of top-ranked players in Greece. You just have Tsitsipas. So at the ATP Cup, you had this Pervilarakis guy who was pretty outmatched in every match he had. He tested positive for COVID in a different country days after leaving Australia. So it looks unrelated, but you better believe Steph Tsitsipas was worried about getting the full probing, if you know what I mean, the full rectal examination. After they discovered that his teammate that he was spending time around has now tested positive, I believe in Dubai or South Africa. He's had to fly to a few places to get out of Australia. But lucky him, because a lot of Australians, I'm sure, would love to escape from Australia and now cannot. They cannot do so. Anyway, so Tennis Australia is aware of Pervilarakis' positive test, but officials are confident the Open's health security bubble has not been breached. At this stage, the Open will proceed as planned. Pervilarakis said, after 24-hour travel day from Australia to South Africa, I've been diagnosed positive for COVID-19. I'm completely asymptomatic, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a person that complains, but I feel I need to express my disappointment with the conditions we are in. Yeah, I'm sure he's getting the full rectal exam as well, wherever he is, poor guy. And a lot of people were worried that might mean Steph Tsitsipas will have to be taken out of the tournament. Looks like he's not, or maybe they'll cancel the tournament, but they are not. But what's the next thing to happen? What if someone in the tournament? At the U.S. Open, we knew what would happen. They said, hey, if you test positive for COVID, you're out of the tournament, and you're put in isolation. I don't remember after that, but we know you're out of the tournament, and the tournament will most likely still go on. Here, we don't know for sure. So it's a nerve-wracking thing, and the stakes are high, as we know, because we put that number on the screen. We've got quite a quarterfinal matchup here on the top half of the draw, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting stuff on the bottom half of the draw. I can't think of anything more high pressure than all of this, not knowing if the tournament will finish, not knowing if the fans will come back. I'll give you a hint. They're not coming back. If they are, I will be shocked. If they are, I'll eat my coffee cup. Okay, I shouldn't say that because they could come back. I hope they come back. I don't think they're coming back. The rest of the show, we won't get into that stuff too much about Dan Andrews and whatever's going on there. Do comment below if you live in Australia. I'd love to know, am I overboard? Do the Australians love it? Have I lost the script here? Am I all wrong on this? Or are there a lot of Aussies? Do comment below whether you love Dan Andrews. I should point out that Washington Post headline or Washington Post article that I referenced earlier with a headline saying Dictator Dan. They also pointed out that despite lots of people calling him Dictator Dan in Victoria, Australia, a lot of people, most people, the majority of the people, some number over 50%, they support him. They like the measures. They want to keep people safe. So comment below, especially if you live in Australia. How do you feel about it? Let's get into the show after we hit the intro music. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we will go through this exciting draw. We'll talk about the matches that we have missed while I was wondering how I was going to address the issue of Dan Andrews on this show and the circuit breaker style lockdown. We got to talk about the Nick Kyrgios-Dominic Thiem match, especially now knowing the aftermath that he went and got destroyed, including eating a bagel in the final set by Grigor Dimitrov. Dominic Thiem obviously not healthy. Something's going on. Was it the Kyrgios match? We've got Mats Wilander talking about what a great match it was, but we also have a bloke named called Alan Atwood from theage.com in Australia. Not so happy with the Nick Kyrgios match. In fact, he was there and he had to leave because it was so horrible being there. And Nick Kyrgios, mainly the fans. He has a lot of criticism of the fans of Nick Kyrgios. And if there's time, I know I promised I wouldn't get too much more into it, but I do want to cite a couple things about what life in Victoria is like right now, because we can't separate what's going on around the tournament. We can't separate that. It's a part of the tournament now. And even though we heard on the ESPN broadcast that the tournament remains unaffected, I strongly disagree with that. So if we have time, I'll get into a little bit of that stuff, but I really don't want to. This is a tennis show. After all, put the draw on the screen. Let's get right into it. Top half of the draw, Novak Djokovic. What a guy. What a fighter. The people out there who are saying he's faking an injury, that's ludicrous. That's a ludicrous claim. Maybe he exaggerates sometimes. I believe Serena Williams' coach, Steph, the guy always in the... I just remembered, we were watching... I love that they have, the scud. What's his name? Mark Philippoussis. I couldn't think of it for a split second. I actually got to spend a lot of time with him a couple years ago at the Tennis Fantasy Week. I'm wearing my Tennis Fantasy shirt. What a coincidence. Well, with Peter Freeman and Crunch Time Coaching. I got the videos, some lessons that Philippoussis was giving to the campers there. And he's a really nice guy. I really like him. Great to hear him in the commentary booth now for the, not the main ESPN2 feed, but like the ESPN3 online streaming stuff. They have him. They have, what's his name, who used to coach Leighton Hewitt. Roger Rashid, that's his name. He's great. Also, Mark Philippoussis, if you don't know who that is, that's the beginning of Roger Federer's 20 majors. Number 1, 2003 Wimbledon, who loses in the final to the young Federer, who at that time no one really knew that he was going to have 20 majors, let alone one. It was Mark Philippoussis doing a great job commentating. But I remember that because there was a match. Let's see, who was he playing now? It feels like forever ago. You had Tsitsipas and Kokkinakis, who's also another Greek guy in Australia, like Kyrgios is a Greek name. A lot of Greeks in Australia. Then you got Philippoussis, who's also an Australian with, Greek family. He's a Greek guy in Australia. And then you got Patrick Mouratoglou in the crowd for Tsitsipas as well. I mean, there's so much tzatziki sauce all over the place with all those Greek guys. Great match with Kokkinakis. Interesting match. We'll talk about when we get in the bottom half of the draw, because we got to talk about Tsitsipas. I still like him to get through Rafa, even though Rafa is feeling better and looking better all the time. It's exciting to see Rafa step in and take a return straight from the baseline on a court this fast. He's actually doing it sometimes, and watching Rafa with all of his firepower stalk the baseline, it's pretty incredible stuff. it just makes you wonder what he's capable of doing if he wants to try to play that way and really go for it against a top player, even someone like a Novak Djokovic. Makes you wonder because it's pretty amazing. Anyways, Mortagalu, which got me going on my tzatziki sauce Greek stuff, he was saying that sometimes Djokovic, he's not faking an injury, but sometimes he'll kind of play dead a little bit. He'll play possum. He'll play like, the injury's going to take him out, and he's not playing that well. He's not moving his best. He looks like maybe he's ready to give up, and then boom, he finds it. He finds the will to fight, and he goes at you hard. Does he do that on purpose? I don't know. I think it's a fair point for Mortagalu. It does feel like that sometimes. Taylor Fritz was very upset. He went as far as questioning the injury, and that's because he just lost to the guy and just experienced that very thing that Mortagalu was saying. You kind of feel like Djokovic is gone. The next thing you know, Djokovic is playing really well again, and it's got to be upsetting and kind of surprising for sure. Djokovic comes through Taylor Fritz 6-2 in the fifth set. Big question on whether he plays or not. Of course he plays. He beats Raonic. Like I said, Djokovic has got to feel like with that head-to-head. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. When you have a head-to-head like that, it changes the matchup completely. Tennis is a sport of matchups. We talk about it all the time. With this fast court, with the strengths of the game of Milos Raonic, you would think it's a good matchup, but not when you have that psychological edge that Djokovic has, and not when you have that psychological thing holding you back. In the case of Milos Raonic, he's got to wonder, does he believe he can ever beat Djokovic, even an injured Djokovic? I don't know if he does. It didn't feel like he did, and it did seem like maybe he had something wrong. He had to call the trainer out in that match and have his ankle taped up. So Zverev, who already beat a Serbian, right? He already has acquired a taste for Serbian blood. He's ready after beating Duzilajevic for Novak Djokovic. I think Zverev can win this, and kind of like the Kyrgios match, it's like, man, if you can't find a way to make this a competitive match, at least Kyrgios came very close. It's a bad thing for Sasha Zverev and where he is in his career right now. He needs to find a way to at least make it respectable. If Djokovic goes out there and waxes him like he did Raonic, that's pretty humiliating for Team Sasha Zverev. So he beat Dusan Lajovic. And first, let's talk about Mannarino, though. That was a 6-3, 6-3, 6-1 victory for Zverev. You might have thought, I thought, that Mannarino could present some problems on this fast court, the way he can kind of absorb power. And, I love his little serve return. He barely takes it back and just, there's almost no take back when he returns the services. And the follow-throughs are kind of short. But it's amazing how he can redirect all that power on a fast court like this. You would think that he might give him some serious troubles, but Zverev crushed him. Absolutely crushed him. It actually looked like the speed of the court helped Zverev in that match because it's just exhausting to keep chasing down that ball. I don't care how good your hands are or how well you move. If you're a lightweight dude like Mannarino, chasing that kind of power on a fast surface like that, it will wear you out, and that's what it looked like happened. The Lajovic match, third set, Zverev was very good. First two sets, not so great. Lajovic, if he could have played better, it could have been a different match. Not that he played terrible or anything. But Zverev, he manages his double faults in this match, but the serve is still an issue. And one thing we saw was Sasha hitting aggressive second serves as a first serve at times to avoid having to hit second serves, to avoid going into the double fault trouble. But when you have a weapon, it's one of the best first serves on tour. It's right up there with the Nick Kyrgios serve. Sasha Zverev has got a real weapon in his first serve. If you have to stop using it because you don't want to hit second serves, that could be a problem, especially against Novak Djokovic. Now, quick note on the Djokovic match with Raonic. It looked like Djokovic is not comfortable moving out wide to return. The deuce court slice serve from Raonic, highly effective. Even when he didn't hit his spot, it was working. Later in the match, he was missing the spot, not getting it wide enough, and Djokovic was able to get it. But a lot of times it looked like Djokovic is guessing before the serve is struck that it's going to go wide. I mean, Raonic was hitting it a lot wide. He's hitting it flat bomb out wide in the ad court. Sometimes, a lot of times, Djokovic not even moving to try to return these serves. If Zverev can serve well, not have 20 double faults, and use his first serve rather than hitting an aggressive second serve to be safe as his first serve, Djokovic might really be in trouble. So that's why I'm saying that Zverev should have a chance here. But you know what? Every day that Novak Djokovic gets to recover, you would think he's going to get a little better, and maybe it won't be quite... he probably knew he's going to be able to beat Raonic with only 60% of his game. and he knows he's going to get a little more of it. Maybe he's going to have 80% of his game. I just think of the World Tour Finals on this fast court, and I think Sasha Zverev has a real chance to take down number one player Novak Djokovic. He knows he's not going to have too many chances. All right, let's talk about Aslan. How do you say his first name? Aslan Karatsev. I want to show you this. Very brief, no audio. Look at the forehand from the front. Look at the forehand from the back. This is what I was talking about with Steph Tsitsipas. Karatsev is hitting, he's almost maybe closer to a continental grip, like a volley grip or a serve grip with his forehand than Steph is even, more so than Federer maybe. He's hitting that Tsitsipas forehand. And the funny thing is his backhand is probably the shot he likes better. If I have to say now from the little bit I've been watching him, I watched the entire 5-set match against Felix Auger-Aliassime, who, man, he's gonna be Grigor Dimitrov before we know it, right? He's gonna be baby fed before we know it if he doesn't start having some results. What is he, like 0-7 in finals on the ATP Tour? And this loss to this guy Karatsev that no one ever heard of before, that's got to be rough mentally. So our prayers and condolences for Felix Auger as he goes through this mentally tough time that he's definitely going through. So you saw it in the clip. He's got the very flat grip that he hits. I hope you can see it. Very flat grip. And then a big motion upwards to get plenty of spin. So you're taking the ball early. You got a straight arm forehand. Looks pretty long at contact. And you're absolutely, and length is not just about taking it earlier, but it's also about lengthening the time that the strings are on the ball going through the ball, which, that's part of why Federer's forehand is so great. It's part of why Rafa's forehand is so great. Even though he has the more spinny, semi-Western style grip, he has the straight arm forehand, which is why Rafa is such a rare, lethal stroke. Kokkinakis, very similar stroke to Jack Sock and Rafa. It's the spinnier grip, but it's a very long arm as opposed to the bent arm you see most players on the tour using. So Karatsev has the flat grip combo that Federer and Tsitsipas have that I love. Felix Auger's similar too. He has that, but he's also doing what Tsitsipas is doing very well, where he's really getting under the ball, flat contact out front, crushing it, hitting it deep, and moving up on the ball to make it very safe. It's a very safe shot. That's what's so impressive about Tsitsipas. A lot of things are impressive about Tsitsipas, but his forehand in particular, what's impressive about it to me is that it's a safe shot and it's devastating. It's a massive shot, a crushing, flat cannon of a shot. So that's the story on Karatsev. I like his forehand. He's serving really well. This guy was basically almost undefeated on Challenger Tour matches last year. He'd coming back from some injury around the time of COVID beginning. And now here he is playing in his first major ever, I believe at the age of 27, 28. And it really is a great story. And the backhand is very solid. So if you can get a backhand-to-backhand rally going, Zverev can do this. Of course, Djokovic can do this. It's a very important part of his game. If you can comfortably exchange backhand to backhand and know that the other guy is going to fall apart before you, that's a big advantage. And that's what he did to Auger-Aliassime. The first 2 sets, I'm watching it. I'm thinking, this is not the guy I just saw crush Diego Schwartzman in the previous round. And I'm thinking, if Karatsev can he's obviously nervous, thinking about going to the quarterfinals of a major. It's a big deal. He's obviously nervous, not playing what he's capable of playing. And I'm just thinking to myself, if he can find his game, he could come all the way back from 2 sets to love down. In particular, I'm feeling this way as Mark Philippoussis was feeling the same way, pointing it out. I believe it was him commentating on that match. Whoever it was, if it wasn't him, they were saying that Felix Auger is really not playing good. He's not doing anything special. He's just kind of getting it handed to him, and he's playing okay. And that's when I knew for sure, Karatsev, if he can bring it up a level, Felix might not be able to do it, especially the pressure he's going to feel. There's nothing scarier than blowing your big lead. If you have a massive lead in a match and then the thought enters your head that you could blow it and end up losing it in humiliating fashion, that's really tough to overcome. And I think that Felix is not there mentally yet. That's why he's 0-7 or whatever it is in finals. And that's why he lost this match. And Karatsev, no one wants to play this guy, right? He's amazing. This is funny. I don't want to we've put so many clips of things, but I did have the clip for the draw show. I just thought it was funny because Medvedev was saying our secret weapon when he did the trophy ceremony. He said, unfortunately, you guys don't get to see a doubles match because we have our secret weapon, and he's talking about this guy, Karatsev. And at the time, I was like, what is that guy, some kind of doubles specialist or something? Is that why he's the secret weapon? Now we know he's a singles specialist, at least at this tournament he is. So he's got that flat Tsitsipas-style forehand, works really well here. And the big thing in the win over Felix Auger-Aliassime is how he just goes backhand to backhand with him, and Felix would become uncomfortable, miss, try to force it up the line, and badly miss. And that happened over and over again as part of the comeback. And Karatsev, he seems very mentally tough. Now, he says the reason why he's never had a breakthrough before in his career, he's 27, he's been playing on tour for a long time, is mental tennis. So I believe it. Dominic Thiem, obviously, he was messed up. But that match with Nick Kyrgios was everything I hoped for. It was wild. I predicted Dominic Thiem would find a way to win in the end. Jumping up and trying to hit the reverse tweener at the net with game point to go to 5-4 in the fourth set, Kyrgios, what the hell was he thinking? I mean, I get it. If he makes the shot, he's a god. His crowd they love that. It's a different crowd. It's a younger crowd. It's a rowdy crowd. It's the kind of crowd that you don't maybe trust around your grandmother during COVID-19, and I don't blame you one bit if you're happy that some of those guys are locked down in the state of Victoria. I don't blame you one bit on that, but I don't think it's fair that the worst among us have to remove freedom from everyone. That does disturb me as well, and I hope that doesn't upset you that I'm being so candid on something that's kind of a political opinion in that regard. Anyways, that match was wild. Is it the match that took it out of Dominic Thiem? I haven't had a chance to listen to his press conference, so maybe in tomorrow's show, we'll definitely be back tomorrow. We'll definitely be back tomorrow to talk about what goes on with Rafa and Fabio Fognini. Dominic Thiem goes down to Dimitrov. Karatsev has a great draw, but in some ways, Grigor has a great draw playing Karatsev. Who will come through that? Honestly, if I had to pick someone now, I don't know. He just went through a 5-setter, and Grigor just went through 6-3, 6-3, 6-love. That's a really tough call, but Karatsev is the hot hand. So are we going to see Aslan Karatsev versus Sasha Zverev, an all-Russian semifinal on top with an all-Russian quarterfinal on the bottom? Let's look at the bottom half of the draw. Put it on the screen, baby. Andrei Rublev, Gaspar Rudboy. They that's the match tonight. And Mackie McDonald, who's a lot of fun to watch, especially on this court as fast as it's playing. You got to watch. I think they're first up tonight. It will be the first men's match you can see tonight. Mackie McDonald versus Danny Medvedev. I like the all-Russian quarterfinal that we had at the U.S. Open. I think it was a quarterfinal at the U.S. Open last year. That's what I think we're going to get. But watch out for Mackie McDonald. He has a chance here. His serve, he's kind of like Nishikori. Mackie McDonald. Really spectacular shot making, very aggressive, very great mover. The serve is the big issue. So I like Medvedev to come through. A lot of people are saying Medvedev is the favorite here because of the court. Weird match with Krajinovic. Medvedev lost his game, and it kind of reminded me of what happened to Tsitsipas. Let's go down below. Medvedev lost his game but found it after he went nuts. He was screaming at his coach, and his coach left. So I'm not going to sit here and take this abuse, and good for the coach. When you get the Andy Murray treatment in the box, I think maybe you should walk out. Know when you're suffering from abuse and don't accept it. So I'm okay with that. But the coach was really the smart one here, because what happened after he left, Medvedev started taking things more serious and found his game. He lost his game. Krajinovic elevated his game somewhat, but Medvedev lost it, found it, wins his first 5-set match. That's a big deal here. I like him to come through to the semifinal and face Tsitsipas, Berrettini. We showed you Berrettini being touched on the nipple. Titillating indeed. Berrettini's he's a good-looking guy. Look, I'm not going to deny it. He's got the abs. He's got it all. He's got some kind of tattoo in like Roman numerals or something like that. Berrettini, exciting guy. Looks like he's hurt. I think Tsitsipas gets through there. Fabio Fognini, Rafa Nadal, must-see TV tonight. That's the last one. We will be back tomorrow to talk all about that. I feel really bad for Demon Hour having no crowd there. Fognini is the first thing he said in the interview. He said, look, it definitely helped me that there's no crowd. And he's right. It helped Djokovic get through Taylor Fritz. It's amazing. there's always a lot of Serbians in Australia, but you can't go to Australia right now. So the Serbians aren't there cheering for Djokovic. And now you get this raw Aussie crowd. I think it's a younger crowd. I think some older people are maybe not wanting to go out there. Maybe they're a little too scared, and I don't blame them one bit. So it's a younger Aussie-only crowd, or mostly Aussie crowd. And they don't like Djokovic. What a surprise. Most crowds around the world don't like Djokovic. And I think part of that is to blame on the media for turning Djokovic into the bad guy last year. The Adria Tour wasn't great, obviously, but some people misrepresented that in the media even, and definitely on places like Twitter, which is a horrible place. I do like to go there, though, because you can get tennis news fast. If you want to see the breaking news, like is Djokovic going to play against Raonic tonight, yes or no, go to Twitter. You'll find the first reports on it there usually, but a lot of people on Twitter say things like, Djokovic was so greedy for money that he had to do the Adria Tour. It was a charity tournament, so let's not forget that. So a lot of people out there they just hate Djokovic because they heard that he doesn't believe in vaccinations and he spreads COVID and he's a bad guy. He's a villain, right? So I think that's unfair treatment. But anyways, so this crowd, this rowdy young Aussie crowd, they're chanting USA, USA before they're all forcibly removed from the stadium. You better believe that definitely helped Djokovic. So good for him that there probably won't be a crowd returning because they're going to root against him no matter who he plays. Even if it's an American, they'll just start chanting USA. Maybe they'll chant Germany or Russia, which they might not know that Sasha Zverev is from Germany. He's a pretty Russian dude. So Tsitsipas, Berrettini, I got Tsitsipas. I'm going to take Rafa over Fognini, but that's no guarantee there. I still like Tsitsipas to come through Rafa Nadal and play most likely Danny Medvedev. All right, let's talk about Wilander Hales, Nick Kyrgios, the firelighter. For me, these last two matches he's played against Ugo Humbert and Dominic Thiem are by far the two best matches, of the tournament, the most entertaining they were at that point for sure. This gives us hope for the future with Nick Kyrgios. Hopefully, this will catapult Nick into a mindset which says, I haven't played a match in a long time, but I'm good enough to play with these guys. Hopefully, he gets in there and does a bit of practicing. The shot-making skills and decisions he makes, that's why he's so interesting to watch. When he fights like this, he's one of the best players in the world and one of our most favorite players to watch. Keep it up, Nick. Serve is amazing, so accurate, so tough to read. That's why it's very, very difficult for me in the beginning. That was Dominic Thiem talking about Nick Kyrgios. All right, so that's enough of that. I agree, but the crowd was kind of disgraceful in itself, the way they were treating Dominic Thiem and Ugo Humbert, calling him Goldilocks, cheering every time he double faults or misses his first serve. You shouldn't have to wait for the crowd to quiet down after missing your first serve. They did the same thing to Djokovic in the Taylor Fritz match too. And that leads me to this article from theage.com in Australia. All show and no respect, a night with the Nick heads. Nick, as in Nick Kyrgios, Nick heads. He calls them Nick heads. This is Alan Atwood writing for The Age. Alan, I think that maybe there's a better name out there. You're almost there. I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with Nick heads. It rhymes with stick heads. It rhymes with brick heads. And Dominic Thiem might call it Fickkopfer or Fick heads, which is not anything I would say in English on this show. Anyway, so let's take you through this, and then we will get out of here to watch more tennis and be back tomorrow and talk about it for sure. I don't care what Dan Andrews does. I now know that I'm going to be candid discussing it, and we'll be ready to talk about it if he cancels the tournament or whatever might come. Alan Atwood starts. It was the best of nights. It was the worst of nights. Friday at the Australian Open, last session before lockdown. First time my wife, Carrie, and I would see Nick Kyrgios in action live. His opponent, last year's runner-up Dominic Thiem. So why, with the match still in the balance, did we walk away? This guy, he left. He left because he didn't like the crowd. I'll give you a hint. This had never happened before. I'll stop doing the voice. We've seen the matches at all the Grand Slams. My own experience of Opens goes back to 1972, so he's an older fella. Not ready for the young Nick Kyrgios crowd. I don't blame him. I mean, they are kind of douchey, right? A lot of douchebags in that crowd. I do not deny that one bit. The way they were cheering for the opponent of Nick to double fault is definitely not a good thing. I don't like that. I think you'd think of Aussies as a more sporting crowd, right? Well, not with Nick. And this guy, Alan Atwood, he has a real problem with it. I think he takes it a little too far, though. So let's go back to him. Never before have I been amongst such a toxic crowd. Who's to blame? Kyrgios himself and his mostly male supporters, who all call Nick heads. I'm telling you, there's a better name out there, Alan. Also, I blame the Open organizers for pandering to them. So anytime I hear someone making it a crime to be male, mostly male supporters, my antennas go up. Red alert. We're on red alert. This guy, even though he is himself a male, he has a real issue with mostly male, raucous crowds. It all began well. We arrived mid-afternoon, found our seats at the John Cain Arena, watched the admirable Naomi Osaka, so zen, she took time to rescue a butterfly. He likes her. Doesn't like Nick. Then a stroll and a meal before returning. Carrie took pictures and tweeted her delight at being there. Maybe you and Carrie, maybe the Nick Kyrgios match you shouldn't have gone to. I'm just starting to get this vibe here that maybe this is not your crowd. This is not your match. Maybe just you see the Osaka match and you skip the Kyrgios match. That's where I'm thinking this should go, but that's not where he takes us. Then it started. After the first point won by Kyrgios, of course, a bloke 2 seats along stood up and yelled, "Come on, Nick," and clapped loudly. Then kept clapping until he was the only one making noise. Last one clapping. Yeah, we all know that guy. Happens in movie theaters, happens everywhere. People tittered. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's what happened to Matteo Berrettini. The guy tittered him a little bit. Tittered me for sure. Titillating. He'd been noticed. Exactly what he wanted. This is how it went after every single point. All right, the guy's obnoxious with his clapping. Is that really so horrible? It's not great. It's not ideal. But what do you expect? You went to go see a Nick Kyrgios match. Come on, mate. Kyrgios broke team serve, a feat deserving applause, but not enough for Nick. Changing ends, he revved up the crowd. This is what he does. In between thumping aces and pulling off incredible shots, he's lauded as a showman, a draw card. He's in more ads than Alex de Minaur, who's ranked higher, or even Ash Barty, who's actually won a title. Come on. We know why Nick Kyrgios is in more advertisements. He's got way more star power. Way more. You know it. I know it. I mean, Nick Kyrgios isn't the only player in history to start with winning records against all big three in his first meetings with the guys. That's why. He doesn't have a major, but he's the first guy in history to initially beat, when meeting for the first time, all big three. I do believe that. If that's not the stat, it's something close to that. Come on, we all know here. Let's be honest with ourselves. I'm told he's good for tennis. Attracts a new generation. Many of them were there on Friday night as Kyrgios played on the same court for the third successive time. Here's the favoritism. Yes, when you're a big star, you get favoritism. Just like Federer got it a little bit last year. He was the last match scheduled to recover from his injury. Djokovic got it again. He was the second match on the night session to get the most time to recover from his injury. This is what happens. You play to the star power because that's how you run a business. And is it so unfair to put him on a different court? Nick, where is it? Many of them were there on Friday night. Kyrgios played on the same court for the third successive time. Meanwhile, Dominic Thiem was on his third court for the week. He should be able to find a way to win on any court. All those guys are prepared for it. Remember when Federer lost to Kevin Anderson? Okay, I guess I did blame it on the court switch last minute. Okay, maybe I'm being hypocritical now. That was 2018 Wimbledon, for those of you who are new to the sport. Open organizers condone this. Thiem later described it as one of the tougher challenges in tennis to face Nick on his favorite court. I wonder what John Cain himself, a decent gentleman who loved tennis, would have made of all the Nick heads. Many fueled by both testosterone and alcohol. Standing up to tell Thiem his serve wasn't as good as Nick's, and sometimes they were singing out, "Kill him!" Really? They were saying that? I mean, that is you got to look at it from the other side, right? If I write a piece complaining about Serena fans and saying how they were fueled by estrogen and daiquiris, right? And wine spritzers, it's a bad look for me, right? I'm not going to do that. That's a bad look. Why is it okay to sound like this guy where you want to make mostly male testosterone supporters illegal at the Australian Open? Finally, this is when he takes it to the next level. This Alan Atwood guy. Do remember on this show, almost a year ago or longer, I compared Nick Kyrgios and Donald Trump. Some people were very angry about that because there's more to that comparison than what I meant. If you really want to dive deep into the political stuff, I was just saying the way he gets attention, the way he says obnoxious, stupid things, the way he tweets, it was kind of like Donald Trump. I think I was pretty accurate. But this guy, he makes a similar claim to me. I was the first, don't forget. But he takes it to a new level. It reminded me of Donald Trump's mob. And just as Trump lost control, so did Kyrgios, who took his fans to peak delirium when he clinched the second set with an underarm serve. But later, when the match started to swing against him, he turned on one especially voluble Nickhead, and he urged the umpire to assert himself more, as if, again like Donald Trump, he wasn't the one to blame. Then he goes on to say that Kyrgios has no respect. He says he respects Federer and Nadal, but they've never shamelessly played to their fans like Nick, nor do they toss in underarm serves. It's the same as in cricket. It's legal, but it's unethical. Nothing was reported about this underhanded tactic. They all said it was gutsy Nick, brave Nick. What a ride it was with Nick. The crowd was raucous, whipped into a frenzy. Actually, it was ugly and embarrassing, and the mob waved many Australian flags. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I guess he has an issue with that one. Should I crumple it up or keep it for later? Hit the music. We're getting out of here. Comment below if you're from Australia. Do you like all this stuff going on in Victoria? It sounds like Alan Atwood would like it. In fact, he might like it if they quarantine these Nick Kyrgios fans forever. It does seem a little bit like he's into the authoritarian stuff, Mr. Alan Atwood over at The Age. Like I said, it was disgraceful the way the crowd was cheering for double faults of the opponents of Nick Kyrgios. But do we have to demonize all of them and then say it's because they're male and they have testosterone? It's a little bit extreme to me. My advice to you, Mr. Alan Atwood, if you go around carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, it's not going to be good for you. No way, no how. It's something like that. I think I got the idea of the John Lennon quote there. I was close. Maybe a little bit off. See ya!
But if you go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't gonna make it with anyone else.